Yeah, title says it best down below. I talked about this in the more recent video, and I read what some people have had to say and looking up over everything, and I think, in a sense, you have to look at it like this. Don't blame Roman Reigns. Blame WWE booking and creative. That's how you look at it. Here's why. You would think, realizing that they were going to be, as I put it bluntly in the other video, the wrestling smart mark capital of the world last night for the Royal Rumble. You think they would realize that they need to book the Royal Rumble match in a sense that they're not going to get pooed. They're not going to get destroyed. They're not going to have the aftermath that they have and are still currently having. You think WWE would be like, okay, we're in Philadelphia. This is ECW's birthplace. This is a secondary home to several independent, if not major, independent promotions. What can we do to get the crowd on our side? Oh, I don't know. Allow somebody they want to see win. They feel kind of fits that mold that's similar to an ECW-like guy or one of the major independent promotion kind of like guys, and go from there. Go from there. Allow that person that superstar that fits that same mold. Allow them to get booked to go over and win the Rumble. That way, you could send the crowd home happy, and then later on, maybe you could still go with your plan to go in the direction that you wanted to go in. Just because, if there's one thing we've learned about the Royal Rumble, it doesn't necessarily mean that whoever wins the Royal Rumble, one thing we've learned about it is that throughout its history, not everybody who wins it goes on to main event WrestleMania. Not everybody. Okay? Not everybody goes on to main event WrestleMania. Sometimes their main event match is usually the opening match. You don't believe me? Ask Edge and Del Rio, or El Padre. Ask Sheamus and Daniel Bryan. Just because you win the Rumble doesn't mean you're going to main event WrestleMania. And sometimes, in the case of, say, someone like a John Cena, you could, storyline-wise or not, decide to cash in your title shot early. Does it necessarily mean you're going to main event WrestleMania? No, not really if you're cashing it in a month early. So just because you would have done the right thing, in my opinion, or should have done the right booking decision, and had, say, someone like a Dolph Ziggler or a Daniel Bryan or even a Dean Ambrose win, doesn't necessarily mean they would have to go on and main event against Brock Lesnar. You could have had them win the Rumble, and then, like I say, maybe come Fastlane, get forced to put in the title shot on the line in a match that would involve Roman Reigns, along with several others like Big Show and Kane, or Big Show and Seth Rollins, or John Cena, whatever, and Rusev. Or do something like a multiple tag match or a four-way match or something. Have the individual that won the Rumble lose his shot there, and then off to the races you go. You would still have said, okay, we gave the crowd in Philly what they wanted, now we can move forward. Now, I understand some of you watching this might say, well, Brian, that still wouldn't make sense, because even if they would have done the right thing and booked Daniel Bryan or Dolph Ziggler or Dean Ambrose to win, or even Bray Wyatt to win, and then they ended up losing that title shot the month later at Fastlane, the crowd at the audience in Memphis would have pooned it even more. Maybe, maybe not. You see, there's a difference here. You see, depending on when an event takes place, the crowds are always different. The crowds are not so genuinely passionate. Well, they're passionate, but not in a sense that, let's say, no offense, but places like Philadelphia, New York, those places are. They're not as passionate. I mean, they're passionate, but they're more passionate on we're just coming here to be entertained, or we're just coming here and we're going to be neutral about it. And the people in Memphis, Tennessee probably would have been neutral. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. They would have been very, very neutral to the decision. Why? Because, like, Philadelphia is ECW's birthplace and the secondary home to places like Chikara, Evolve, Dragon Gate, Ring of Honor, CZW, and if it wants to do a pro, and if it does it, and if it wants to do an East Coast tour, if it ever wants to do an East Coast tour in the future, PWG would definitely be a secondary home and would find a secondary home in Philly. Memphis is the birthplace of Southern wrestling. Memphis is the home of Jerry the King Lawler. And there's a lot of fans there down in Memphis that have too much respect for someone like Jerry Lawler, the legacy he left, the legacy he made the legacy he made for wrestling in that area. They have too much respect for the business as a whole from a traditional standpoint. They may not like the decision of, let's say, putting Reigns in the main event if, let's say, they would have done that scenario where, okay, you would have, like I said, where you would have either a fan favorite like a Bryan, a Ziggler, or an Ambrose or a Wyatt winning and then losing that title shot the following month at Fastlane. It wouldn't they wouldn't necessarily like the idea, but they wouldn't be ponying it, they wouldn't be booing it, they wouldn't be hating on it as the Philly crowd is. They wouldn't be destroying it, they wouldn't be hurting it. And I know you think, I know, again, now I can probably I can probably hear you saying, well, Brian, it probably wouldn't have mattered if the Rumble was in Philly or was held where you live, Patterson, California. Fans still would have pwned it. Maybe, maybe not. Again, I think it's all about location. And when you take a look at some of the most passionate wrestling cities and sports entertainment cities in the world, Philadelphia ranks up at the top. There's no doubt about it. There is no doubt about it. They rank right at the top. Now, like I said, this is why if you're a person that lives in Philadelphia, you have all the right in the world to poon this pay-per-view. That's your right to say what you want and rant on it. That's fine. And I can understand that. But what you have to realize is it's not Roman Reigns' fault. It's not The Rock's fault. Heck, I'll go online and say it's not even Big Show or Kane's fault. It's the WWE booking. Creative. It's Vince McMahon's fault. And in a sense, you could also put the blame on Triple H because he agreed to the decision. Maybe Triple H didn't agree to how Reigns would have won it, but he agreed that Reigns should win, just not in the fashion that he did, and probably not against the people he ended up eliminating. So, to me, it's more along the lines that Reigns doesn't deserve to get the treatment he's getting. Maybe he's not the most polished guy just yet. Maybe he's not totally ready just yet. But he doesn't deserve to have all the blame. Okay? I know some people might might say, "Oh, well, Brian, that he does deserve the blame." No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Reigns did what he had to do. He was booked to do it. He did it. He probably didn't expect. Well, he probably did, but he probably didn't expect to win it in the way he did. He probably knew he was going to get a negative reaction, but he didn't expect he was going to get a reaction that strong. The problem is WWE booked it to where Daniel Bryan got eliminated way too early, and they should have waited. They should WWE, in my opinion, should have waited and did exactly what I said in one video. They should have put it down to Reigns or Daniel Bryan. I said, I believe, in one video where it was entitled Reigns or Bryan, who wins the Rumble, and you can see that on my channel here. I said that one of the best scenarios for them to do was put it down to those two, make it down to them as the final two, and maybe have a scenario where both go over the top rope, and Reigns somehow holds on, or something like that. Just a scenario to where Daniel gets eliminated, but not like, okay, Reigns is just going to grab him, toss him over. No, basically it's going to be a fight. It's going to they're going to fight each other. They're going to basically attempt and everything to get each other over, and by some momental mistake, Bryan ends up going over. And then to me, what would have been the best scenario was for them to shake. Would be for Daniel to come in, shake Reigns' hands, endorse him in front of that live crowd, so that if that live crowd in Philly sees one of their favorites, the person they wanted to win the Rumble, endorsing a guy that pretty much they were pooning from the beginning, who had just won the Rumble, if they see him raising the hand of Reigns, it's going to be like, okay, if Daniel Bryan, you got to look at it this way. If they would have done that, in my opinion, it would have turned the crowd around, and they would be cheering Reigns, not pooning him, not booing him or anything. But again, that's WWE booking for you. They didn't do that. That's something they should have done. And then, yeah, you could have brought the Rock in and did the same scenario with Big Show and Kane being probably part of the Final Four, being eliminated, and coming down to Daniel and Reigns, and like I said, something happening where Daniel gets eliminated, and then of course Daniel shakes Reigns' hand, and maybe they both get attacked, and then Rock comes down. I mean, you could have done all that, but you could have done it in a very correct, more meaningful, more impactful way. And I think if you would have put it down, if it would have been Daniel Bryan and Reigns at the end, and Reigns somehow surviving, being eliminated, and Daniel ends up being eliminated either by momentum going against him, or him and Reigns fighting off the top rope, or fighting on the rope, and Daniel's feet hits first, and Reigns is able to get himself in there, then keep himself in the match, then to me that would have made more sense. But again, that's WWE for you. They don't seem to understand that. And it seems that Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, whoever else was a part of this, Triple H could get some of the blame, maybe even Stephanie. They just don't understand. And overall, Vince McMahon is the be-all, end-all of everything, right? So if you want to blame anybody, put the blame on him. Put the blame on him and maybe Dunn and all that. Because, yeah, like I said, Triple H may have agreed to let Reigns win, but probably not in the manner that he did. So, again, in closing, let me say this. As the title says, don't blame Roman Reigns for the Rumble win. Blame WWE booking and creative. And that's all I'm going to say, folks. So, you let me know if you agree or not with what I had to say in this video. And I'll talk to you later. Comment below.